The argument against abortion and in defense of life is very much lacking on the right. It is an issue that Republican lawmakers and activists tend to want to run away from. They say this isn't a winning issue and it's not the hill that we should die on. And I vehemently disagree with that statement. I believe that the argument for life and for the unborn is indeed the foundation for all of the other issues that we are having in our society. I believe it is the greatest spiritual battle of our time. And today I've got an amazing guest who is going to have you seeing this topic and the unborn in a whole new way. Hey, everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And I am so excited for you to hear this conversation today. I am honored to have been joined today by the ProLife Doc, Bill Lile. I first heard Bill as the keynote speaker at a fundraiser for Sarasota Medical Pregnancy Center a few months back. And the way that he shares information about the unborn as a patient and the rights that these tiny little humans should have will have you seeing things in a whole new way. And when I heard him speak a few months back, I thought, this is a message that every citizen, every activist, every lawmaker, every candidate, every pastor really needs to hear. I think you are really going to be changed and blessed by this conversation today. Well, welcome, Bill, the ProLife Doc. I am so honored that you took the time to chat with me today. You are a very busy guy. I noticed you have a lot of speaking engagements on your schedule upcoming. So encourage everyone to go check out your website if they want to catch you in person, which is prolifedoc.org. Now, I heard you speak here in Sarasota, I think it was February, at the Sarasota Medical Pregnancy Center annual fundraiser, and I was just in awe of you talking about the unborn child as a patient and having the same rights as the mother as a patient, and having the doctors and the anesthesiologists and all these different people. And it kind of made my jaw drop, because it's like, this is the argument that we as pro-life activists and advocates should be having. And one of my biggest frustrations is that a lot of times you'll see Republican legislators who don't want to touch the abortion issue because it's not a winning issue. And this isn't the hill to die on. And I believe, and I imagine that you do too, that this is the hill to die on, and that really protecting life in the womb has ramifications for every single other thing in society. And if we don't believe in the sanctity of life of the unborn, then what makes it different when they are born? And we're seeing that with this, so-called gender affirming care and assisted suicide policies that are going on. And it's just a disregard for the sanctity of human life. And so I want to refer people to your website and your YouTube channel, which is all connected on your website, which is prolifedoc.org, where you can watch. You have some great illustrations and models of the baby in the womb getting these medical procedures. But maybe you can kind of give us sort of an overview of the unborn baby as a patient.
Sure. Well, first, this is a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual
Absolutely.
battle. Genesis 1:26 says that we're created in the image of God. We're meant to reflect that image of God. Well, when are we created in the image of God? Well, it's not on our birthdays. I just turned 63 days ago. That's not when I was created in the image of God. We're created in the image of God and we become unique at that moment of conception. When one egg, one sperm come together, we are genetically unique from our mom and dad and from the other 8 billion people on the planet. In fact, moms and babies can even have different blood types because they don't share blood. Everything the baby needs comes from the placenta and the mom, and everything the baby needs to get rid of goes to the placenta and then to the mom. So we're created in the image of God. So at its core foundation, abortion is an attack on the image of God out of a hatred for God. Just like, why would somebody burn the American flag? Because the American flag is the image which represents the United States of America. If you hate the United States and what it stands for, you want to destroy the image that represents the United States, and that's the flag. But we use science and we use medicine and we use them to teach and to equip. There's nothing wrong with science. There's nothing wrong with medicine. It's just that, especially recently, our scientists have lost their ever-loving minds. Science and mathematics and biology was all created by God, so it is accurate and factual when it is used appropriately and honestly. We try to give people new tools by relating to what they already understand. And most people understand that patients have rights. I mean, we've all been a patient at some time in our lives. All 50 states have rights for all patients. There's federal law protecting the rights of patients, and it's something that is innate that we can understand. But the important thing is our rights come from God, and it is the duty of good government to protect those rights which come from God. So when it comes to patients' rights, we all agree that patients have rights. Well, we were at a medical school at the University of Florida and I asked the students, well, we agree that patients have rights. And they said, yes. I said, well, if I have a patient in the ER that needs a life-saving blood transfusion, but they weren't born in the United States, do I still have a moral and legal obligation to provide them with that medical treatment and a blood transfusion? And the students got really angry. One stood up and he said, we've been taught here at the University of Florida College of Medicine that a patient is a person and is entitled to respect and bodily integrity, and it doesn't matter if they were born in the United States. I said, I agree with you. I said, we also need to extend that same courtesy and those same rights to those who weren't born in the United States yet. And then it got really quiet. And then we just
Mhm.
started to go into how we are not only diagnosing babies in the womb, but we are treating and even curing these babies in the womb. And we are improving their quality of life and saving their lives and improving that quality for the rest of their lives. But we can go into a lot of detail, but we talked about how moms and babies can have different blood types from that moment of conception because half of the genetics come from the dad. Well, sometimes moms will have antibodies which are small enough that they can cross the placenta and start to attack the baby's blood. And the baby's blood count will start to drop. We can actually see what the baby's blood count is actually with an ultrasound. It's amazing how that technology is changing. We can actually measure the speed of individual red blood cells going through the middle cerebral artery in the brain, and I can tell you if that baby is anemic or not.
Wow.
Amazing technology. It's like if you were in a room and there are 50 people in that room, it's probably going to take you a little bit of time to get out of that room. If there's 5 people in that room, you can get out real quickly. Same thing with red blood cells. When there's not enough of them, they move really quickly. Well, we have nomograms that we can actually calculate and say, hey, this baby is starting to get sick. Before this baby gets sick, let's do a blood transfusion. We have done blood transfusions at our hospital as early as 18 weeks gestation. I mean, these
Wow.
babies would die. So if you donated blood and you have O negative blood, we can take your donated blood, put it in a syringe with ultrasound, guide it through the skin, guide it through the wall of the uterus, go right up to the umbilical cord, go right into the umbilical vein and give that baby a life-saving blood transfusion. And sometimes we have to do this every 3 or 4 weeks because mom doesn't want to hurt her baby, but her antibodies are still attacking her baby.
Right.
And so we do this over and over again and we save these babies' lives. And it's like, well, why don't you just deliver the baby? Well, at 18 weeks, there is not a single NICU where a baby could survive at 18 weeks. But we are now treating these babies surgically. We're doing open heart surgery. We are treating brain vascular abnormalities. We're doing laser placental surgery. We are doing
Wow.
heart surgery. And even when we do these surgeries, usually the baby will have its own anesthesiologist. With the heart surgery, which was done at the Cleveland Clinic, an incision, mom had an epidural, so she's perfectly comfortable. They made an incision in mom's belly, made an incision in her womb, her uterus, just like for a little mini C-section. They brought the baby's right hand, they brought the baby's left hand, and they had a pediatric anesthesiologist start an IV in the baby's hand. The baby was receiving fentanyl, a pain medication, receiving Norcuron, a paralytic, so the baby wasn't moving around. And then once the baby was comfortable, then the cardiothoracic team made an incision in the baby's chest, removed a heart tumor called a teratoma from the baby's heart, which was going to kill the baby. They then closed the baby's chest, removed the IV, tucked the hands back in, closed the uterus, closed the skin. They did all that at 27 weeks gestation,
Wow.
and they didn't deliver that baby until 37 weeks. So we teach all these different procedures because all patients have rights, and a patient is a person, no matter how small. So we don't want the pro-life community to just say, well, I'm pro-life. Well, why? We want to give them the tools that we can, because
Yes.
I'm an advocate for patients' rights, or I stand up for the least of these. I stand up for the most vulnerable patients. So we give them these tools where they can go through, and we've developed 3D animations, which are amazing. There's something new every month when it comes to technology. Nobody's done a robotic case yet. We've done laparoscopic, fetoscopic cases where we've operated on babies, but all patients have rights. We're genetically unique from that moment of conception, and we have a biblical, and we have a spiritual, and we have an ethical duty to defend the least of these.
Absolutely. And you have on your website, you have an actual curriculum to train citizens
We
on
do.
these points that you're talking about right now.
We do. We actually spent about a year and a half, and we developed an 8-hour ProLife Doc curriculum. And it's great we homeschooled our children for 14 years, and they still excelled at the University of Florida, graduated magna cum laude. And so we had a heart for homeschooling, but we developed it for homeschoolers, for Christian schools, Catholic schools, but we have lots of churches that are using it as their Sunday school lesson for a quarter, where instead of doing a 60-minute session, they'll do only 30 minutes of each lesson, which gives them 16 weeks, which is a quarter. And the Sunday schools are just loving it. But we also developed for pregnancy resource centers. So there's 8 different chapters. We start off with the basics, like how does conception happen? How about fetal development? It's amazing. It's a miracle. You can just see the hand of God as the creator, because you have one unique cell. Then it
Yeah.
doubles its genetic material, goes to 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. But then at a certain point, these are all identical cells. And then one cell says, I want to be just like you. From here on, even though we have the exact same genetic information, I'm going to only read maybe chapter 3. And I'm going to start the entire cardiovascular system. And another identical cell says, well, we can do our own thing. And it says, well, I'm only going to read chapter 7. I'm going to start the entire skeletal system. And another one says, well, I'm going to start the entire neurologic system. How do these individual cells know what pages of the DNA, of all these millions of base codes of DNA, that they're supposed to read? And you just start to see the body developing and forming. Even at 18 days, we can see the heart beating at 18 days. 1 month into 10 days into the pregnancy, there's over 1 billion cells already. So we talk about fetal development, but then we talk about how we treat the preborn as patients, both medically and surgically. But then we also, the practice that I took over in 1999 was the largest abortion clinic here on the Florida Panhandle. We took over the practice back in 1999, and we had the physician sign a 2-year non-compete where he couldn't practice any medicine. And on day one, we stopped all the abortions. But that also gave us all the abortion equipment. So we shipped all of the abortion equipment, the suction machine and all the instruments, up to a studio in Washington, D.C. And then with high quality, we actually recorded how a first, second, and third trimester abortions are actually performed. No blood, no baby parts, just the actual procedure and technique, because we need to understand the
Yeah.
enemy and understand the evil if we're going to defeat it. But then we have now a chapter on the abortion pill and abortion pill reversal. We have the only animation that describes and visualizes how abortion pill reversal works. The abortion pill is now responsible for more abortions than anything else in the United States. It's 64% at least of all the reported abortions. But we have an antidote. Just like if somebody overdoses on a narcotic, we have Narcan. But we have an antidote, and we have safely reversed the effect of the abortion pill 7,000 times now. And I've
Wow.
attempted it 26 times, and we've been successful 19 out of those 26 times. So we go over the abortion and abortion pill reversal, but then we also go through politics. And then my favorite chapter is chapter 8. Chapter 8 is all the scripture that can apply to the duty the church has to defend life, to defend the image of God, and
Awesome.
where we need to get engaged in that. And we actually, I flew out to Scottsdale, Arizona, was blessed to be able to spend Good Friday of this year with Dr. Wayne Grudem. Dr. Grudem is just an amazing theologian. He was the chief editor and designer of the ESV version of the Bible. He wrote Systematic Theology, Politics in the Bible, Ethics in the Bible, and he went through every single verse in chapter 8 just to make sure they were all in context and used appropriately. And he said it was probably one of the most amazing pro-life apologetics curriculums he's ever
Wow.
seen. So that's available. You can print out the workbook, or we actually have the workbook available on Amazon. We can go to ProLife Doc on Amazon, and you can download the workbook, and they can have it to you in 2 days. We just wanted to give tools for the pro-life community, tools for the church, and then the next curriculum we'll have is specifically for pastors. It's only going to be about 90 minutes, but this is a spiritual battle. I mean, it's
Yes.
great having obstetricians. It's great having politicians up on their podiums, but this is a spiritual battle. So it really should be led by our pastors, priests, and rabbis from their pulpits, not a bunch of obstetricians and politicians from podiums.
Right.
So we want to equip them. We spoke at a pastors conference in Huntsville, Alabama last year. 120 pastors who wanted to have more information on defending life and the church's obligation. And we asked all these pastors, 120 of them. Most of them went to a Christian undergrad before seminary. And we asked them, how many of you had at least one lecture during your undergrad and seminary on how to discuss the issue of life and abortion, the forgiveness and the healing and the redemption after that, but why it is wrong? And out of 120 pastors, 3 had even
Wow.
one lecture. So we're not equipping the church, which
Right.
is now, why we are speaking. Going back for 2 years in a row to Cedarville University. We've been to Liberty University, the law school, the medical school. We were just at the University of Dallas, a private Catholic institution, Holy Trinity Seminary, because people don't bring up a subject that they haven't been taught how to bring up. So we're
Right.
there to equip the church to engage and to win.
Well, I love that, and I love that this curriculum is for homeschool too, because I'm glad you brought that up. Because Conservative Ladies of America, we have been building out a homeschool hub to connect parents who want to pull their kids from the government schools, and even some of the private schools have kind of gone off the left cliff a bit. We just think homeschool is true educational freedom, and so this is a great resource that we can add to our homeschool hub for Christian families and homeschool families that want to teach their children about life. So I love that. And I love that you're developing a curriculum for pastors. Do you have obviously our mission is to educate and equip citizens to take an active role in their government and on these policies. And one of the things that's just been so clear to me is that people don't know how to talk about life. They get shut down really quickly by the argument of, well, every woman should have a choice. It should be a woman's choice. It's not my place to interfere with another woman's choice. And so I love that you're putting these things out, to kind of teach people how to kind of counter those types of arguments. Do you have, like, for people like me or people that want to be activists, that aren't necessarily, preachers or homeschool students or what have you, what are what are some good resources, or what is some good, let's get into kind of the messaging about how people can engage in these conversations, whether it's with other citizens or actually influencing policy, speaking on policy to their state legislature or something like that.
Sure. Well, the curriculum is exactly what that was designed for. It's 8 hours in length, and it's really designed for any group, pregnancy resource center, or just a couple of adults, or just an individual who doesn't. We don't want the pro-life discussion with the pro-abortion to just be whoever is the loudest and is the most intimidating wins. We want to teach true apologetics and really focusing around patients' rights, because it's amazing. I mean, even from a genetic standpoint, we can actually, something as simple as boys or girls? Well, I have
Yeah.
about 60 trillion cells in my body, and 30 trillion of those cells are nucleated, means they have all the genetic components, and they are either XX or XY. And if it's, that's the only option that they have. So when somebody says they identify as a different gender, well, there's 30 trillion cells in their body which disagree with them. Gender dysphoria, this is not a condition from the waist down as far as our genitalia. This is a condition from the neck up, where we
Yes.
really need to, it's a delusional condition. Just like if I have a patient who is 6 feet tall, she comes into my office and she weighs 80 pounds and she's having an eating disorder and she wants diet pills. I'm not going to say, well, yeah, you probably look at yourself and say that you're fat. And I'm not going to give her diet pills because she identifies as obese. That would be the wrong thing to do. She needs extensive counseling, maybe even nutritional care and support so that she can overcome this condition called anorexia nervosa. Just like I don't take a patient who comes into me as the gynecologist and says, I think I'm a man, and I don't give her testosterone and other hormone therapy, and I sure wouldn't do that for a child. This is a condition that needs to be dealt with a psychologist and a psychiatrist, possibly maybe with medication, to help them overcome what is really a pressure that is coming in from outside, from really the public. I mean, this wasn't even a subject in medical school when I was in medical school. It was pretty much clear. In fact, it was considered a medical emergency if there was some abnormality, during fetal development, and you just couldn't tell if it was a boy or girl. That was considered a medical emergency, and you had to get genetic testing done as soon as possible so that the parents knew how to identify their new child. So we need to address that. We need to address it honestly. So we want to really equip the church. We want to equip young people. It's amazing, even with homeschool kids, and maybe they go off to high school and they come back and all of a sudden they're pro-abortion. They said this is a woman's right. So we actually, our third curriculum we're developing is a curriculum for kids between the ages of 8 and 12, where it won't address, say, abortion directly, but we're going to give the kids a view with ultrasound, fetoscopy, MRI, of when they see a woman with an enlarged belly because she's pregnant, that there is a patient, there is a person, there's a personality there on the inside.
Yes.
We've actually teamed up with a gifted cartoonist who does Christian cartoons and family series, and we've talked to him and said, hey, have you ever thought about having one of the characters in your cartoon series being in the womb? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you remember the Simpsons, how Maggie never had a line. She'd sit there with her pacifier, but she would roll her eyes or do a head slap. She was engaged in what was going on. Maybe she'd smile or giggle. Have you ever thought about having a character where that baby is in the womb, where the baby will roll its eyes, depending on what the situation is? It will smile, it will giggle, it will frown, it will, do a little head slap. He says, I love it. So we want kids to be able to see a personality there on the inside, because too often, especially when our kids go to high school, that you're like, where did this come from? You go to church 3 times a week. You go to Bible school. How did all of a sudden you become pro-abortion? And we've missed that opportunity to educate. So rather than
Absolutely.
re-educating our kids when they are influenced by the media and other influencers, we want to prepare them before they get influenced, because it's a lot easier to keep somebody on the straight and narrow than to have them go off track and try to bring them back.
Absolutely, and I love that you are doing that, because I think that's something that is really lacking on the pro-life side, or the right side of everything, is that the other side is so far ahead of us with their materials and their curriculums, and look at Planned Parenthood and how they
Yeah.
have really become almost a part of the public education system, and they're bringing in their abortion agenda and their so-called gender affirming care agenda. And you have states like where I came from in Washington state, where these kids can access this service. There's no minimum age, and the parents don't even have to be told that they're
Yeah.
accessing these services. And so I love that you are doing that. And I've noticed that Idaho this year passed the Baby Olivia Act, where they will be playing that the baby Olivia video. I think it's in 8th grade. I forget which grade it is, but I think legislation like that is really important. And to the people who want to make the argument of, I think you and I both believe that life begins at conception, And, some people will say, well, viability, which then you get into, well, what is what point in time is viability, right? And you
Right.
have kind of this margin. I'm pro-life, but abortion up till 6 weeks is okay. What do you say to that with people who kind of have that sort of, they're doing those mental gymnastics a little bit?
Sure. Even when it comes to viability, I mean, that would generally be considered somewhere between 24 and 26 weeks by most states. Yet we're doing actual surgical procedures, the blood transfusions. We are doing blood transfusions and saving babies' lives 2 months before viability. We've done that as early as 18 weeks gestation. There are blood tests that we can do to determine gender, which are 7 weeks after conception. I mean, it's
Wow.
amazing that we can do a blood test on the mom and we can actually look at what's called cell-free DNA. And cell-free DNA, most of it is from the mom, but about 5 to 10% of that is from the baby. And we can actually, so when we do the blood test from the mom, we can extract all of the cell-free DNA. But 90% of it is from the mom and 10% of it's from the baby. Well, what does that do? We can actually also have the technology that we can separate the cell-free DNA, these little fragments of DNA from the mom, and the little fragments of DNA from the baby, which would be like if you had a sugar bowl and I put a pinch of salt in your sugar bowl and I said, hey, I didn't want to do that. Could you do me a favor and get all that salt out of the sugar? You're like, I can't get that. It looks the same. We can actually separate the salt from the
Wow.
sugar with the cell-free DNA. And we can actually tell you not if this is going to be a boy or if this is going to be a girl, but if this is a boy or is a girl by looking at those fragments. That's more 99% accurate. But the baby is genetically unique. And visualization is such an amazing thing. In fact, remember, who knows what the harp seal was? I've never seen a harp seal before in my life. But then all of a sudden, I remember when I was younger, they had videos of, them, the cute little harp seals, and then they had videos of them being clubbed and stuff. And all of a sudden, the whole world rose up and says, you can't do this to these tiny little seals. We're just trying to show that life in the womb. You know, Sometimes with the abortion, yes, the brutality of abortion is true. But what we have found when it comes to, converting and changing people's hearts, that we actually, there was a church that was showing one of the more brutal and graphic abortion videos in our town. And I asked permission, and we put up a GoPro up on the stage to see what the audience response was when they were showing this brutal, true, but blood-filled, graphic video. When we look back at the video, we saw that over 85% of the audience was either looking down at the ground, had their hands over their ears. They had their eyes closed. It's like, you're not educating anybody if nobody is actually looking. So we took the shift of showing the life in the womb, of using scopes, fetoscopy, where we can actually put a camera inside the womb and see the baby moving around. We used animations of how we are performing surgery. No blood, nothing that would be offensive, but 3D high quality animations of all these different surgeries in the womb. So we went from people looking like this, people looking like this. That's how you educate and that's how you equip. But again, we have to get back that this is a spiritual battle. When
Absolutely.
things when things don't make sense, the fastest growing fellowship in the OB world, and a fellowship is after you do your 4 years of college, then 4 years of medical, then 4 years of residency, you can do additional training. I mean, you're ready to go, you're ready to practice. But say you want to do GYN oncology, cancer treatment, or reproductive endocrinology, infertility, or high risk obstetrics, or urogynecology as far as leaking bladders and dysfunction. You can do an additional fellowship. The fastest growing fellowship in obstetrics is a fellowship called Complex Family Planning. It's 2 years, where for 2 years you are taught how to do a late term abortion and also how to do what's called a selective reduction, where you will actually, maybe a mom has quadruplets or triplets. And yes, there's an increased risk of preterm labor, but I've delivered triplets and I've delivered quadruplets. But with complex family planning, it'll actually teach you how, listen, there's 4 babies in there. Let's decrease the risk of preterm labor. Why don't we go in? We're going to take a needle. We're going to inject potassium chloride or digoxin into the heart of baby B and baby D. Kill baby B, kill baby D, only be left with baby A and C, and then you'll have less chance of preterm labor. Can you
Wow.
imagine spending 12 years how to have healthy moms and healthy babies, but then to spend 2 more years because your goal is in career is how to do that or how to do late term abortions? Even as far as the global impact of this evil. We know the abortion pill, and the abortion pill was actually created by a brilliant endocrinologist, a Frenchman named Etienne Emile Ballou. And he created the abortion pill more than 25 years ago. And annually, each year, globally, there are probably about 40 million abortions performed with the abortion pill, his creation. Well, Etienne Emile Ballou just passed away about a month ago at the age of 98. But when you look through the numbers, 40 million per year over 25 years, his creation, which he was very proud of up until his day of death, is now responsible for 1 billion deaths here in the United States. I mean, in the world. There are 8
Wow.
billion people on the planet. He's responsible for 1 billion deaths. I mean, we talk about how we don't have enough people to continue, the commerce of the world because we've aborted 1 billion. So Etienne learned something very vital on his first, the day after he died. He learned that there is a God, there is a
Yep.
heaven, there is a hell. And if he didn't know Jesus, and I don't see any evidence that he did, that's where he will be spending eternity. Will be in hell for attacking the image of God 1 billion times. And he was a gifted man. And you see a lot of people who are gifted surgeons. How can you take that gift and that knowledge of how to save lives of moms and babies and then craft
Yeah.
yourself into being a destructor of the most innocent, these tiny little babies in the womb, even from when they're just still about an inch long, and injecting their hearts with potassium chloride just to
Yeah.
kill them out of convenience. Even using the abortion pill. Last year, there were 26 articles worldwide on how you can use that same creation, the abortion pill, and effectively use it to cause an abortion, to cause the death of a baby up to 28 weeks gestation. I mean, the abortion pill is actually indicated for up to 10 weeks gestation, but there were 26 articles on how to use it up to 28 weeks gestation. And these are from all different countries across the globe. And when you look at the actual article, they start to share their different techniques and their different recipes on, well, and then they talk about how you want to make sure that you're not inconvenienced by the patient or by the provider by having a baby that's delivered with a heartbeat. So they actually go through all of their different protocols and recipes, just like this is a church cookbook on making cheese grits. They said
Wow.
one group would say, well, we prefer to inject the baby's heart with potassium chloride. Another group would say, we prefer to inject the baby's heart with digoxin, a heart medication. Others would say, well, we just prefer to use a needle and repeatedly stab the umbilical cord so that the baby exsanguinates. And they're all sharing these different ways that they prefer to use to kill the baby before they induce the abortion, just like it's routine. So when death becomes a recipe, becomes
Yeah.
available mail order, if your daughter has a cell phone, she has access to the abortion pill without you
Yep.
even knowing it. Your grandchild could be aborted and you wouldn't even know it because death can be delivered by the United States Postal Service with the abortion pill. And now we have these studies that show it can be used up to 28 weeks gestation. A baby born at 28 weeks has about an 85% chance of survival. Yet now we have a pill that can be used at a higher dose to kill these babies, this image of God in the womb.
And it's so evil. Like, it's hard to listen to you talk about that and how they're going to kill off these babies in the womb before they, abort them with the abortion pill. And this is these, as you said, with if your daughter has a smartphone, or if Planned Parenthood is in her school, she can get these. And one of the bills that passed in Washington State last year in 2024 was to allow abortion providers not to put the name of the drug or the provider on the abortion pill prescription to protect the provider. So your daughter could come home from school with this bag of abortion pills, and it's not even labeled. If she's bleeding out on the bathroom floor, nobody even knows why or what she took.
Yeah,
It's just
and they're
it's Go ahead.
In the cases of complications, the Ethics and Public Policy Center, just the EPPC, back on April 28th, released a groundbreaking article on the risks of the abortion pill. They looked at insurance data, so it wasn't biased. It was insurance data. People had been prescribed the abortion pill, desired an abortion, but then they followed those same patients, and there were 865,000 women that they looked through. They looked through their insurance data, private insurance, Medicaid, TRICARE, and just try to see, well, we've been told that the risk of a severe adverse reaction was less than 0.5%. But as far as physicians, we're seeing a lot more complications than that. It's like, do I just live in an ultra high risk community? I mean, why am I seeing so many complications from the abortion pill? And what they found was that the risk for, they didn't bother looking at the mild reactions. They didn't bother looking at the moderate adverse reactions. They only looked at severe adverse reactions and life-threatening adverse reactions. And when they did that, they found that it was not 0.5%, it was 10.93%, almost 11%, which is 22 times higher than what we had been told. And this study, this 865,000 women, that was 28 times as large of a study compared to all of the studies that were used to get the approval of the abortion pill. So have we taken products off of the market after they've been approved? Sure, we took Vioxx off the market. We took DES off the market. We took thalidomide off the market. Thalidomide was causing horrible birth defects on babies, yet it wasn't taken off the market for 5 years after it had been approved. So even as far as the numbers, we saw 40,000 women had to go to the ER with a complication. We had over 25,000 women who had hemorrhage and had to have evaluation, even blood transfusions. We had 3,000 cases of ectopic pregnancy where the pregnancy was actually in the tube, which is a life-threatening condition. And we had 12,000 cases of women having infection and even sepsis. So it is not safe and as easy to use as Tylenol. Not only is this going to kill a baby 98% of the time, but they had over 90,000 cases of women who had a severe adverse reaction from this pill, which in a lot of states is available mail order. In fact, if you go on to some of these organizations, you can get the abortion pill in all 50 states. And a lot of these consider themselves providing health care and providing quality care and providing a source of care for women. And a lot of times they won't even charge you. So your daughter doesn't even need a credit
Right.
card to get the abortion pill. She can just say, I don't have any money, and they will send her the abortion pill. And they always tell these young ladies, don't tell, if you have to go to an ER, don't tell them you took the abortion pill. When a woman takes the abortion pill, one of the instructions that she is, given is that you can expect bleeding, cramping, and pain. Well, statistically, 1% of all pregnancies will be an ectopic or a tubal pregnancy. So out of every 100 abortion pill packs that they send out there, 1% of those women will have a tubal pregnancy. And what are the symptoms of a rupturing tubal pregnancy? They're the exact same: bleeding, cramping, and pain. We're seeing more and more women who are delaying coming to the emergency room because they're having bleeding, cramping, and pain, but it's not because of the abortion pill. It's because a pregnancy in their tube is growing and is rupturing and causing bleeding. A ruptured ectopic pregnancy to this day is still the most common form of death among first trimester pregnant women. 1% women will have an ectopic pregnancy. So it's deceptive and it does not provide health care. It actually puts risk. What do we do with these women who are pregnant and they weren't expecting it? Well, that's why we have almost 4,000 pregnancy resource centers across the nation. These are organizations and groups run by volunteers and with donations, which will
Mhm.
meet the needs of the mom. If she says, I'm pregnant, I want to have an abortion, well, let's do an ultrasound. Let's, number one, make sure that the pregnancy is healthy and see how far along you are. You need help because you don't know how to care for a baby. We have childbirth classes. We have child care classes. We can provide you with formula. We can provide you with breastfeeding classes. We can provide you with diapers. You don't have housing. Let's talk to you about housing. We can get you into different housing. You don't have a church that you can go to, we'd love to have you come and join our church. So all the needs and the counseling, the physical needs, pregnancy centers are there to educate and number one, share the gospel, because that's the real key. If we want to win a spiritual battle, we're not going to win it with politicians and obstetricians. We win it through the blood of Jesus Christ and the message of forgiveness, which is available through the gospel. And these people are
And
doing this. There are thousands of them across the country who are just there to meet the needs of these women and the men, because every pregnancy, except for one about 2,000 years ago, every pregnancy involved a guy. And there was that one that happened in Bethlehem. And well, I don't think that's going to happen again anytime
right.
soon. But we're here to meet the needs of the moms and the dads and involve the dads. So many of these dads come from fatherless homes and they don't know what it means to be a dad, how to be a dad. They're just out there and they're procreating, but they have no thought as far as what could happen from this. So we want to provide them encouragement, provide them resources, what it means to be a dad, and have those dads be there while the ultrasound is being done. Let them see the baby on the inside. Let them see the heart beating. Let them hear the heart beating. I mean, that is the truth. And, we should never be afraid of the truth. It's the truth that will set us free. Jesus
Amen.
is the way, the truth, and the life. So we have to lead with the truth and be unashamed. And we need to meet the needs of these moms. So there's thousands of centers across the country. Most of them are either affiliated with Heartbeat International or CareNet. They all have great curriculums that can meet their needs. Heartbeat International also has a great ministry of abortion pill reversal. We've trained, I'm one of the 3 medical advisors for the Abortion Pill Reversal Network. We have trained over 1,000 practitioners on the protocol to reverse the effect of the abortion pill safely. We have about a 72-hour window from the time a woman takes the abortion pill until we can actually safely reverse the effect of the abortion pill. I've been successful 19 out of 26 times, and we just celebrated a couple weeks ago successful reversal number 7,000. And you celebrate
Wow.
those 7,000, but you also have to
Absolutely.
remember there are 700,000 babies that are aborted with the abortion pill each and every year. That is every man, woman, and child in Washington, D.C. each year with the abortion pill. And yes, we celebrate the reversal of Roe versus Wade, but since the reversal of Roe versus Wade, the numbers of abortions have actually gone up,
Mhm.
primarily due to the abortion pill. We're up to reported abortions of 1.1 million, but we know it is much higher than that because so many of the abortion pills are coming over from China, they're coming over from India, and they're not reported. And so we know that number is at least 1.1 million year after year, and we're up over 65 million babies here in the United States. I mean, how many is 65 million? Well, that's every man, woman, and child in California, plus every man, woman, and child in Florida since 1973.
Wow.
Again, it's an attack on the image of God. When we look
Yep.
through Judges, when you get some time, everybody read through Judges 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you read through those chapters, you see the same theme over and over again, where it says, "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord." Well, what were they doing? Well, first they were worshiping other gods, but then they were doing things like offering their own children as demonic sacrifices to
Yep.
Molech. We're
Yep.
doing the same thing here now. Well, what happened? Did God love the children of Israel? Absolutely, he loved the children of Israel. They were his chosen people. But then did he just say, hey, y'all are on your own? No. He actually delivered them into the hands of their enemies. He strengthened their enemies. We've taken the lives of over 64 and probably 65 million babies here in the United States, all created in the image of God. That doing evil in the sight of the Lord? Absolutely. Does God love the United States and the nation of Israel and what they all stand for? Yes. But they're doing evil in the sight of the Lord. So we're not just fighting for that individual mom and not just fighting for that individual baby. We're really fighting for the future that my kids, my grandkids are going to grow up in. So that's why
Yep.
we all need to be engaged in this battle. Lead with the gospel, realize this is a spiritual battle, but we can use the tools of modern medicine, science, and biology to win this battle.
Absolutely. Amen. And I just want to, kind of hit on what you said with when Roe was reversed in 2022. That was a huge win, sent it back to the states, and you've seen many states that have, really ramped up their pro-abortion agenda. We saw last year's election, I think it was 8 states put it into their state constitution, enshrined abortion as a constitutional right in their state constitution. Fortunately, here in the state of Florida, and I believe you were instrumental in fighting against Amendment 4. And so it did not pass, but it will come back. And so we have to stay engaged in this fight. And then, same with the SCOTUS ruling last week in the Tennessee, upholding the Tennessee ban on so-called gender affirming care for minor children. That was a great win. But what you're seeing already in blue states is we will stand for trans kids. We will protect trans kids. And so we're poking the enemy, and he's just, it's like it's getting inflamed. And so it's incredibly important that we as Christians and pro-life advocates stay engaged and stay in the fight. And you're just really hitting down on, this is a spiritual battle. That's 100% what it is. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why so many people, I'll say Republicans, elected Republicans, kind of run away from this because they don't want to be seen as religious. And so, they don't fight this. But if we don't have the courage to step into this spiritual battle, it's going to continue to get much worse. So I'm glad that you are out there putting out so many materials and resources for people. Do you have time for me to circle back to a point that you made?
Sure.
You were talking about the ectopic pregnancies, and that's something that we hear a lot about from people, especially in states like Florida, where you have a ban on abortions. I think Florida's 6 weeks. And they say, providers can't do take care of ectopic pregnancies. They can't do DNCs for miscarriages and that sort of thing. Can you address that? Because I know that's a blatant lie.
Sure. Well, first, we realize this is a spiritual battle when it comes to abortion, being led by Satan himself. I mean, this is who our enemy actually is. And Satan is the great deceiver. He lies, he cheats, he deceives. When it came to Amendment number 4, Amendment number 4 would have changed Florida, which when I took over the abortion clinic, you could legally perform an abortion at 24 weeks gestation. I mean, we had babies at our hospital surviving at 23 weeks gestation, yet you could legally abort a baby at 24 weeks gestation. Now, you just disturb a sea turtle that was, in its nest in the egg over on Pensacola Beach, you can be fined $100,000 and spend a year in jail for just disturbing a preborn sea turtle. But you could legally abort a baby which could survive in our NICU. Then with legislation, we brought it from 24 weeks down to 15 weeks. Then from 15 weeks, we brought it down to heartbeat at 6 weeks. Then came Amendment number 4. Planned Parenthood of Florida and the ACLU of Florida invested over $100 million on trying to get Amendment number 4 added to the Constitution, which would have allowed for abortion at any gestational age for any reason, be constitutionally protected here in the state of Florida. It would have been almost impossible to reverse if it became part of our Constitution. And then came the lies, then came the deception. You would see doctors with their white coats by the nurses' station saying that women are going to die because currently with the way the law is written for the heartbeat bill, they said currently if a woman comes in with an ectopic pregnancy, my hands are tied. If a woman comes in with a miscarriage and the baby doesn't have a heartbeat, I can't do a DNC to remove that possible source of infection. Absolute lies. The law does not delay in any way, shape, or form management of an ectopic pregnancy, tubal pregnancy, an incomplete miscarriage. You absolutely, when the mother's life is threatened in any way or her future ability to have kids, you can act. It was so blatant that Governor Ron DeSantis actually sent a letter to every licensed physician in the state of Florida pointing out that this is a lie, that the current law does allow for D&Cs, does allow for ectopic care when it comes to these patients which are in danger. In fact, it even allowed for an abortion up to 15 weeks if there was sexual assault that was involved. I don't agree with that, but DeSantis actually pointed out, and he said, if these lies continue, you will lose your ability to practice medicine in the state of Florida, because you know that these are lies and we know that these are lies, and you are using this falsely in order to get votes for amendment number 4. So do women sometimes need to have care when they have an ectopic pregnancy? Yes, they can be treated either medically or surgically. Do sometimes women have miscarriages? Absolutely. My wife and I have 2 beautiful daughters, but we also had 4 miscarriages. And sometimes you need to have a D&C because for whatever reason the baby has passed away, but it can cause an infection on the inside of the uterus, and we need to manage that. So we care for these moms. Later in pregnancy, are there reasons where we need to deliver the baby? Yes, women can develop preeclampsia. They can develop other conditions where the only cure is the delivery of the baby. That's the key word, delivery of the baby. If a mom has severe preeclampsia at 24 weeks, the cure is delivery of the baby. Killing the baby does not cure the mom delivering. So are there reasons and situations and medical conditions where we need to deliver the baby? Yes. And then give that baby every opportunity to thrive and do well in our neonatal intensive care units. There was a baby at just 22 weeks and 3 days that survived and is doing great up at UAB recently. So reasons to deliver a baby? Yes. But does killing the baby in any way save the life of the mom? No.
Right. Really quickly, the situation in Georgia where the mother was brain dead, kept on life support
Yeah.
to keep the baby alive. I know that was what the family wanted. I'm not too well versed on the case, but I've seen kind of the left coming out and saying that was unethical. I really, most women I know, that are pregnant will do everything they can to protect the life of their baby, and I can't imagine a mom saying, if there's a way to keep my body functional to incubate my baby until my baby can live outside my womb on their own, do whatever you can. I'm just curious if you can shed a little bit of light on that situation.
Yeah, the young lady's name was Adriana Smith. Adriana was 8 weeks pregnant. She already had a 7-year-old son. And for whatever medical reason, when she was 8 weeks pregnant, she had numerous clots that went to her brain, one of the rare complications in pregnancy. And she presented to the emergency room. The baby at 8 weeks, which is only about that big, the baby still had a heartbeat. But unfortunately, when they did brain scans and EEGs, they found that she was brain dead, but her body was still functioning well. So they kept her on a ventilator, so the baby was still getting oxygen. They kept her on nutrition, so she was still getting through what's called total parental nutrition. She was still getting protein, she was still getting fat, she was still getting carbohydrates to keep the baby alive. That was at 8 weeks. And I thought that the news media would have said, wow, this is amazing. Mom is brain dead. Mom is the life support system for the baby, and the doctors are keeping the mom healthy so that her body can continue to help grow the baby. But that wasn't the narrative at all. All of a sudden they were all saying, well, this is abuse of a corpse, and they're just having a corpse keep this baby alive, and the baby's only 8 weeks along. Well, the doctors continued at Emory Hospital. They kept that baby alive by keeping the mother sustained with everything that she needed. The baby recently delivered at more than 25 weeks gestation, weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces, has about a 90 to a 95% chance of survival. So
Amazing.
would mom be happy? Absolutely. I think mom
Yeah.
would be thrilled that even though, she passed away, we were able to save the baby. Whenever we have a pregnant woman in my office, we actually have 2 patients, and we want to have a healthy mom and we want to have a healthy baby. Sometimes with an ectopic pregnancy or a miscarriage, we unfortunately can't save the life of the baby, but we will take care of the mom. In this condition, it's just the other way around, where
Yeah.
we had a mom and we had a baby. We had 2 patients. Sadly, mom was brain dead. but we still had a baby that was alive. And so from 8 weeks to 25 weeks gestation, they managed both of them so that that baby will probably do very well. The baby is progressing just like we would expect for a normal 25-weeker to develop. So pregnant, we have 2 patients. If she has twins, we have 3 patients, and I've delivered triplets and quads when I have patients who have quadruplets, and they all are on full scholarship at the University of West Florida, the quadruplets that I delivered. But we have
Wow.
yeah, but when we have quadruplets, we actually have 5 patients there on the
Yes.
inside. All patients have rights, and we need to defend the rights and provide the highest quality care for all of our patients. And then one more, as long as we're talking about Georgia. You remember the case of Anna Nicole Thurman. Anna
Yes.
Nicole Thurman came up during the last election because she was about 8 weeks pregnant. She was 8 weeks pregnant with twins. Well, let's talk about how lies are always used by Satan. Georgia has a heartbeat law, though, because Anna Nicole Thurman was pregnant with twins at 8 weeks gestation. Both had heartbeats. She could not get an abortion in the state of Georgia because Georgia has laws that protect the lives of all patients, the moms and the babies. Anna then went to North Carolina. She wanted to get a surgical abortion, but there was lots of traffic and she got delayed and she didn't get to North Carolina in time for a surgical abortion. So they offered her the abortion pill, 8 weeks with twins. She took the abortion pill. She drove back to her home in Georgia, and she followed up with the rest of the medications. The abortion clinic in North Carolina didn't even call her to say, "Hey, how you doing? Everything going okay?" 72 hours later, after she returned home to Georgia, she was sick. She was having bleeding. She was having cramping. She felt feverish. She went to an emergency room. The emergency room evaluated her. They did an ultrasound. Neither baby had a heartbeat. So the heartbeat law does not come into play because both babies had passed away. But they realized she was sick and she was septic and she needed to get seen by an OBGYN. They consulted the on-call OB who's got the whole information. He says, put her on some antibiotics. I'll see her in the morning. He should have gone and seen the patient. You can't evaluate somebody over the phone. So he did not put her on some antibiotics. He didn't see her the next morning. He didn't see her until the next afternoon. 20 hours after she had arrived at the hospital, he finally took her to the OR to do a D&C, to empty the uterus of the infected products of the conception and the delivery. She was so sick that they had to put her on medications to try to keep her blood pressure up. They realized that a D&C would not be enough. She was septic, and they actually needed to do a hysterectomy. They actually had her under anesthesia. They opened her up to do the hysterectomy, and they found out not only was the infection throughout her uterus and her womb, but it had spread to a bowel. Sadly, Anna Nicole Thurman died on the operating room table, not because of a heartbeat law, but because of an incompetent physician who gave her the abortion pill. She wasn't followed up. She then developed sepsis. She was then sent to an emergency room. And by deviating from what would be the standard of care to go see your patient, evaluate your patient, rather than wait until the next afternoon, and Nicole Thurman died from medical malpractice, not because of a heartbeat law in Georgia. But you saw all the politicians from the left
Right.
coming out and saying, you know, Georgia's heartbeat law killed Anna Nicole Thurman. No, Anna Nicole Thurman sadly had been deceived and she took the abortion pill. Neither baby had a heartbeat. There was absolutely no reason to delay her care, whether that was a D&C or as other surgery for Anna Nicole Thurman. The heartbeat law saves lives. It had nothing to do with her death. It was medical malpractice that killed Anna Nicole Thurman. And yet they'll use that and they'll trump that around and they will lie even when they're corrected on what the truth of the story is. They will still
Yeah.
lie because they're influenced by Satan, and Satan is the great liar and he's the great deceiver.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was a very hot topic issue last with the 2024 election, especially with all of those abortion constitutional amendments that we had going on around the country. And I'll just touch on this real quick, and we'll wrap this up. But the reason I reached out to you, I'd been meaning to for several months, but that Ohio bill, House Bill 370, Ohio passed constitutional amendment. They have a simple majority. So in 2023, just barely passed with slightly over 50% to enshrine abortion into their state constitution. Ohio is a kind of a purpley red state. But now a couple of Republican legislators have introduced House Bill 370, which would essentially nullify that and create a patient protection act for unborn babies beginning at fertilization. So that would be a huge win. I hear that there's, not all the Republicans are on board with that, which hopefully that will change. And we'll get this information out to the people of Ohio. And hopefully if you're in Ohio, you can hear, if you've heard what we're saying today, this is a great way for you to get active and advocate for life in Ohio. But I don't know if you've had a chance to look over that bill. I'm sure just, knowing what it's about, you're all on board with it.
Well, Ohio realized that they kind of dropped the ball when this constitutional amendment was come through. Of course, the Constitution is always going to be the highest law of the land. So when you see a constitutional amendment, especially for abortion, like we were facing here in Florida, you've got to jump on it at the very onset. Amendment number 4 in Florida should never even have made it to the ballot. It should have been blocked when it got to the state Supreme Court. So when you start to hear the rumors of a constitutional amendment, you need to start defeating it early, because that's the real key. Yes, they're taking amazing steps legislatively, but it's going to be a challenge because the Constitution is the highest law of the land. So we need to engage early, and we need to engage with our pastors. I think one of the keys on us being successful in defeating amendment number 4 is because we did actively involve our churches and our pastors. August 29th of last year, we actually offered here in the Panhandle of Florida, we actually offered free tacos and a lecture on the constitutional amendment for pastors. And people said, a lot of the big groups said, if you can get 8, maybe 10 pastors to show up, even if you have free tacos to discuss a constitutional amendment on abortion, consider yourself blessed. Well, we hit the road hard, and we contacted lots of pastors. We had over 70 pastors, priests, and rabbis show up for free tacos and a lecture on what Amendment 4 would actually mean. The very next Sunday, you saw the big churches with their big digital marquees vote no on Amendment number 4. You saw the smaller churches with dozens of signs vote no on Amendment number 4. It almost became cool in this area to say vote no on Amendment number 4 once they understood what it actually meant. And the church engaged. For each pastor that we had at that event, they probably represented 500 different voters. When it came to election day, it was looking like the pro-abortion side was going to win. The Panhandle of Florida, once you get past Tallahassee, of course, is in Central Time Zone. So we start voting an hour later, but we get to vote an hour later. And we were just over the 60% needed mark when the ballots closed and the polls closed in the eastern side of Florida. But then came the Panhandle. 60% was the mark, and they had gone beyond that 60%. Escambia County, where I work, was the first county that came in under 50%, and that's where we were very involved, and that shifted the needle just a little bit. Santa Rosa County, where I live and where we were very involved in the different churches in this community, it came in as the lowest percentage county in the entire state of Florida at 39%. Wow. And that shifted that needle just to below 60%, down to closer to 59%. But we need to engage our pastors, and that's how you multiply the messaging. And we had to even acknowledge to inform the pastors that this is a policy issue. This is not party, and this is not candidate. You can, as the head pastor of your congregation, stand up from the pulpit and say, vote no on Amendment number 4, and will not jeopardize your 501c3 status. I mean, you should say the truth anyway, but it will not violate your 501c tax exempt status. This is policy, not party, and not a candidate. So even educating the pastors about that, equipping them. We made it real easy. We had a bunch of different radio stations, and you could pick either a 15-second, a 30-second, or a 60-second radio ad. You could pick your favorite station. We'd already produced radio ads on Amendment number 4. We had TV ads where you could pick a 15-second, a 30-second, or a 60-second ad. And you could just go through just like a Chinese menu and say, I want to do 5 ads, 30 seconds at this radio station. I want to do 10 ads on this TV station on a TV ad. They'd write a check, and we didn't take any money. We just, had the stations play that. It was easy, it was accurate, and that's what we really need to do, is equip them with something that
Yes.
is easy to do, something that then when they're listening to their favorite country station and they hear a vote no on amendment number 4 ad, they can say, yeah, y'all, I paid for that ad. I mean, that's how we really get victory. We want to
Yep.
engage and let the people have purpose. But it really comes down to education. I mean, we're blessed to live in a nation where we do have these freedoms and we can vote and we can assemble together and speak our minds. We need to defend those rights that were given to us by God, brought to us by our founding fathers. But our pastors, when it comes to a spiritual battle, they need to be the tip of the spear. They need to be leading, and we just need to equip them with the tools where they can be victorious.
Absolutely. And I so appreciate that you're doing that and your efforts and so strategically. And that was definitely, a game changer for Florida's Amendment floor four. And fortunately, my church was I don't know if my pastor was one that attended there, but they had me speak and do a video on it. And then they had me out in the foyer for the 4 weeks leading up to the election and talking to people about it. So I was really grateful that my church was on that, and I'll keep doing everything I can to help with that effort in my county down here and everywhere else I can. But I so appreciate all your work. I appreciate your time today. Where's the best way for people to find all your content and all the resources that you and I have been talking about today?
The easiest direct source is our website, which is prolifedoc.org. We put all of the videos up on YouTube as well, and you can seek out ProLife Doc on YouTube. And really, the curriculum, I would really, if you really want to become better equipped, really consider either as an individual or as a group, ordering the curriculum through the website and really have the tools that you can use to engage with the opposition and really take a stand for life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as you and I have been talking, I've been thinking that I'm going to do some kind of like a group thing with the curriculum. So I'll probably roll that out maybe this fall and do an 8-week course with some people, some of our members and our audience with that, so that we can get that rolling. That sounds like it would be. I'm sure I would learn a lot from that, and I know a lot of other people would as well. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Again, prolifedoc.org. You can find out where Bill is speaking. He's all over the country. And I saw we have a big Washington audience. I saw that you're going to be in Moses Lake, Washington this fall. So for my friends in Washington, if you want to go see Bill in person, look at the website and he'll be in Moses Lake this fall.
God bless you. It was an honor to be with you today.
God bless you as well. Thank you. I hope that you learned a lot from our conversation today. Bill is such an amazing advocate and resource, and has truly been a hero here in the state of Florida and far beyond, influencing policy and educating policymakers and pastors alike. I will have links to his website and some other resources in the description of this video. Please do share your comments. Make sure that you give this video a like, as that helps the YouTube algorithm and helps other people to see this video. Please share this with your pastors, with your Christian friends, people in your circle, with your legislators. Even if your legislators are not Republican, please do send this so that we can get this message of truth shared far and wide. If you have any questions or would like to know how you can get engaged with the work that Conservative Ladies of America is doing to advance pro-life policies across the country, please reach out to us. info@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. I would also recommend that you subscribe to our Substack, which is the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action delivered straight to your inbox. If you're not already, please do subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to share it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.